So I send him my money, and after sending him, it was 1,000 rand. After sending him the 1,000 rand, he says, we've sent you the bitcoins, right? So I call that lady and I'm like, listen, we've been scammed. I sent this guy 1,000 and he's like, he sent us this bitcoin. And she's like, no, just find out what he's saying. So I started texting him, saying, hey, listen, you've scammed us. Where's our money? Yeah. And he's like, well, the numbers on your computer screen, those are the bitcoins that I've sent you. And I'm like to him, hold on. I've just sent you 1,000 rand, and you're telling me some numbers on my laptop is what you've sent me? And I was like, what? And at that time, it was a couple of Bitcoin, mind you. I think it was about 5 Bitcoins. And 5 Bitcoins today, I mean, that's north of 3 million. You know? Exactly. But in that time, they were worth 1,000 rand. Today I went over to Love Life, and Love Life is an NGO that deals with youth development, helping the youth with some struggles like mental health, self-confidence, and all sorts of different topics that they assist young people in understanding. And I was invited to their Purple Couch, which is an interview, and in that interview I shared my story, my journey, what I'm all about, how I got there. And for me, the big angle when it comes to doing interviews, the most important thing for me is how do I get people to take action? Because a lot of people watch content in these days, a lot of people watch a lot of stuff, but at the end of watching the stuff, they don't really take action. And my biggest thing about doing any sort of interview or doing any sort of talk, I want people to be able after that to take action and inspire them and ignite them to go out there and live their best life and do what they want to do or what they're destined to do in their lives. So let's go in, see some snippets, and hopefully some of these snippets will inspire you and help you see life in a different perspective, but most importantly, hopefully these snippets will inspire you to take action and go after each and every one of your own
dreams. With all of this research that you're doing in university as a 19-year-old, don't you think that was like further and further taking you away from studying and actually making your parents proud and attaining that qualification that they sent you to school for?
To school, yeah. So look, I come from Venda, Limpopo, which is really hectic with education.
Yeah.
So I knew that I needed to study to make my parents proud. But what I did know is that students actually have a lot of time in university.
A lot.
And I think this is a conversation that many of them don't want to have.
That's what I'm saying as you're speaking. I'm like, what was I doing when I was in university?
So literally, I'd wake up, get to the library, go for my lectures. In between my lectures, get back to the library. After school, stay in the library till about 11 p.m. And then I'd go home. And as I'm going home, other students were coming from groove partying, this res activity, that, this and the other. Literally, I lived in the library. And I literally also lived, in the lecture hall. And in each of those times, I was thinking, actually, you have a lot of time in university. And I think that's the truth of the matter. The fact that you don't have so many other things to do. For example, sports, things like that. I mean, most of my time, I spent it doing research. But the motivating factor was that every bit of research I did moved me closer to making money. So it was very exciting. I remember somebody asked me, said, weren't you bored? I mean, other students were partying. I was like, well, look, if you're making money, you're not bored.
So you were making money at that time?
I was making money, yeah. So
from your first year?
From my first year. So from my first year, I'd already started businesses. I had a cleaning business in university where I was cleaning student rooms. So I'd hired people and were doing that. So I'd already started business. I was selling Brevos rolls outside of Stones, a club in Melville. Already, my businesses were already generating money for me. So in university, I was already thinking, how am I going to make money to sustain the life that I want to live after university?
Sure. All right. Now, you made your first million at 21. I want to know, between 20 and leading up to your 21st birthday, what was going on?
So what happened was, I started to explore systems of how people are making money. And there were this group of ladies that were in Soweto that would join something called Kipi, right? And, they would say slogans like, oh, Kipi built me my house, Kipi works. So I'd attend most of these seminars and most of these things and I'd listen. And after listening, I'd always ask questions. You'd be like, oh, how does this work, Go to a Herbalife seminar. how does this work? Okay, this person says they're making money from Herbalife. Is it working for me? Is it not? So I basically learned about every single business model that there is. And one thing that I learned about when I was at that Kipi was one of the ladies that were there had asked me to buy her Bitcoin. So I said to this lady, what is this Bitcoin thing? And she was like, well, I don't know, but somebody in Russia said I must buy Bitcoin, so let's buy Bitcoin, you know. And I sort of said to the lady, you know what, I know a lot about business, but this sounds very scammy, you know. It sounds like something where you're going to lose your money. Yeah, and she was like, well, I don't care if I lose my money, just buy it for me. So I was like, how does it work? And she's like, I don't know. Started doing more research on it, and I basically found a Chinese guy on the internet who was like, okay, I've got Bitcoins, send me money, I'll give you the Bitcoins, right? So I sent him my money, and after sending him, it was 1,000 Rand. After sending him the 1,000 Rand, he says, we've sent you the Bitcoins, right? So I call that lady, and I'm like, listen, we've been scammed. I sent this guy 1,000, and he's like, he sent us this Bitcoin. And she's like, no, just find out what he's saying. So I started texting him, you know, saying, hey, listen, you've scammed us, where's our money? And he's like, well, the numbers on your computer screen, those are the Bitcoins that I've sent you. And I'm like to him, hold on. I've just sent you 1,000 Rand, and you're telling me some numbers on my laptop is what you've sent me? And he's like, yeah, that's it. Those numbers represent the Bitcoins that you now have. And I was like, what? And at that time, it was a couple of Bitcoin, mind you. I think it was about 5 Bitcoins. And 5 Bitcoins today, I mean, that's north of 3 million. You know? Exactly. But in that time, they were worth 1,000 Rand for about 5 of them. So I say to this guy, look, what's going on? You know, I'm questioning him. He's like, well, this is this Bitcoin thing, and this is how it works. So what happens is, there afterwards, the next day, those 5 Bitcoins were now worth about, it was like double the amount that it actually purchased for. So I was very, very excited to be like, okay, what is this thing where somebody sends you a couple of numbers on the internet, and hey, it actually is money, you know? So I started to be more inquisitive about it and started to buy and invest more. And in university, I was in the lecture hall in 3rd year, in my 2nd semester, about to finish my degree. I opened up my laptop, and the amount of Bitcoins I had accumulated were actually worth 1 million Rand. So I'm in my lecture hall. I look to the left, I look to the right. I'm like, you know what? This 2nd industrial revolution education that I'm getting is not going to work for me. So I closed my laptop and I literally leave, and that was it.
And you dropped out?
That was it.
You dropped out?
3rd year, 2nd semester, about to finish. I was like, there's no need.
And what do your parents in Venda then say?
Oh, well, then I called my parents and I'm like, I've got 1 million Rand in my account. Yeah, no. Well, as I leave the lecture hall, I'm like to my parents, I've got 1 million Rand in my account. I want to drop out. My parents are like, we don't believe you. Literally send them proof. Then my parents are like, okay, you've got the million.
Fine.
Yeah, like, it's okay. Go ahead. So then thereafterwards, literally, I think for me, the whole reasoning was, I was in my 3rd semester. I was in my 3rd year. In my 2nd semester, I was done. The only thing that was left was for me to actually write the final exam and get the cap, right? But knowing that technology had changed, I knew that the cap I was getting was educational things that were not going to work for me in the new world. So automatically I knew that just me getting that paper was going to be an ego thing. It was not going to represent anything that I wanted to achieve. So literally left, and after leaving, I continued doing what I'm doing, which is cryptocurrency. And the internet is basically saying, look, somebody from China and somebody from India who do the same work, there shouldn't be a difference in their payment system. But today there is, because I mean, the political system determines how much they get paid. But with Bitcoin, it's not part of a political system. Everybody's the same. We all get involved in the same market. If the market dips, we all dip. Market increases, we all increases. And it's sort of creating the same system that we have with the internet. Because even with Instagram, if you post from America, somebody posts from Africa, it's the same thing. YouTube is the same thing. So now we found a way to monetize that. And now the world is moving into something we call Web3. And what Web3 is saying is, Instagram should not own your post. If you post on a platform, you should own that data. If companies want to advertise on that platform, they should come in. And how do we then break these internet platforms and stop allowing them to take money and basically create an economy where the money of the whole digital economy is shared by everybody in the digital economy? That's now what people are calling Web3, and that's where the internet is sort of moving towards, where everybody owns their own data.
How can someone at home, like myself, get involved in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency? are sort of maybe the first 3 steps that I should take?
Cool. So I think the first thing you should do is read. So I usually say take about 10, 20 minutes reading about what Bitcoin is.
I'm not even doing that anymore. I'm now going to be researching the same way that you were researching.
We're researching.
4 hours. Groove 4 hours. Groove 4 hours. Yeah.
and the next thing I would say is go on the internet and actually research what is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I've got lots of videos that actually give you. And the next thing is get involved.
Yeah.
Get involved. I think I always say to people that when I started, I lost a lot of money. When I started, I got scammed a lot of different things happened.
Can you give us a figure?
Look, I was a student, so I didn't have that amount of money, but to me it was a lot of money. It was 5,000 Rand.
Okay.
Right? But as a student, 5,000 Rand was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So there was a lot of money that I actually lost along the way. But the good thing is that I never gave up and I kept on trying different things. Different things. How do stocks work? How do markets work? And I think the biggest issue, especially with the young African child, is that they forget that when you're spending time on Instagram, there's a developer in San Francisco who's becoming a millionaire off you spending time, Why not be that developer?
Yeah.
And the big difference is that person actually did research. I always say to people, I'm like, whenever I look at myself, I think of myself and I think the difference between me and Mark Zuckerberg is literally nothing. Mark Zuckerberg was in his university room and that's where they created Facebook. It wasn't created in some hectic high-tech lab where it was a bunch of boys in university who did not go to Groove, who decided to code internet, And I think that's the big secret.
Who did not go to Groove.
Well,
Okay.
what I'm saying is when they were coding, they were not at Groove, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same concept to say, hey, if you're in university right now and you've got some friends, find friends that are not planning the next Groove, that are planning on building the next big thing. Because those people do exist.
All right, I need to change my friends. But as an entrepreneur, who started doing business in university and up to now, what would you say has been the biggest challenge?
I think for me, the biggest challenge has always been the system that already exists. And I think every young person in any country can understand that the political system that exists today does not serve the young person. Currently, I advise the sitting president of South Africa on the fourth industrial revolution and the government.
Yeah.
And many of the times when you speak to these people, they're clueless. And the reason why they're clueless is because these systems are very old. These systems simply no longer work. We look at a lot of different things in our country and we see the way that they're going. We begin to realize that the government is really out of touch as to what's going on. I mean, a system like television should no longer be existing. I mean, we've now got the internet. Everybody's got the internet. Why not give everybody the internet and put television on the internet?
Yeah.
Why are we still having a television system that people actually want to use satellites for? And it's these sort of systems that actually frustrate a lot of development. Because think about it. If we had a system, for example, TV, satellite, national TV, if we had a system where each household had the internet and we had all our national televisions on the internet, we'd be far more greater than we are now. Far more television programs would be there now. A whole lot of different things would be happening. I mean, what would happen if each country had to create their own YouTube? So these are sort of issues that one would actually realize that much of our problems is the fact that a lot of the systems that we've got within countries are very old and they're very designed to sort of administrate these old systems and ways that move forward. I mean, America is very forward thinking, but the rest of the world usually waits for America.
Then we act,
And then they act. Why can't we act before America? China is also very forward thinking, but a lot of people usually wait for China. So those are the big problems that we see, that a lot of these systems are old and they just need to be cancelled. We need young people in government. We need young people who are forward thinking in government, people that you can sit down with as a young person, give them what you know and they're able to relate, Not somebody's going to go out to you and say, okay, look, go out there and type it, and even after you've typed it, they'll be like, okay, I still don't get what you're talking about. So definitely young, innovative thinking.
And I think also living in a country where, it's the highest unemployment rates for youth people, it can be scary, and I think it makes one challenge themselves about what can I do more, what can I do with what I have, and how safe is cryptocurrency?
So cryptocurrency is risky, and I always say to people, I'm like, I wanted to make money.
Yeah.
High risk, high reward. If you don't risk, I mean, the 10,000 Rand salary. Like,
Yeah,
that's the
literally.
truth. That's the best way I can put it. So I always say it's the most risky thing ever. Get involved in risk,
Yeah.
manage your emotions in risk. Because the truth is, every single person that has ever pioneered anything took a risk.
Yeah.
For example, look at Bonang. Bonang left university for Live Amp. That was a risk, a very big risk. And today, she's a media mogul because of that risk.
Because of that.
So if you want to achieve greatness, you have to go for the risks. I mean, I'm not the guy who's going to tell you to be conservative, to think small, to never. I'm the guy who says go on the edge of risk. Create a new path for yourself. Create a new way for yourself. And if you fail, you're in the right company. Because if you look at all these great people, Patrice Motsepe, whoever it is,
Yeah.
they've all failed. So it's very interesting to say risk is what you want to be involved with. But also in that risk, the thing that's going to protect you is getting the right information.
Yeah.
Risk is something that you need to manage. So don't just risk it aimlessly so. Manage your risk and manage your reward as well.
Manage your risk and manage your reward. Now, obviously, if you're like, we live here in South Africa, and if you're making 10,000 Rand a month, you have your bank, your ABSAs, your Standard Bank, your FNBs, and all the other financial institutions. Does crypto have like an institution, say like a crypto bank that I can go into and apply for a loan, for example?
Cool, yeah. So we do. Crypto does actually have one.
Really?
Yes, and we've got lots of them in South Africa as well, and a lot of them do fight with banks, right? Because this is basically taking bread
Customers
from
away
banks.
from the banks.
Exactly. And in all this, you can get a loan from a crypto bank. I've often gotten a loan from crypto banks. You are able to get a loan to buy a house from a crypto bank. Literally, my whole financial system is a crypto system. And a lot of people don't know this, but there are these systems that exist. Because remember, monetary systems and banks are as a result of profit-making systems.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, the bank will always say to you, do this, do that, because you want to live according to a bank.
Yeah.
I mean, in crypto, when you get a loan on crypto, your loan is based on the assets that you've got in crypto and not in a 3 months bank statement. So for example, I have cryptocurrency. If I want to buy a car, I'd go to a bank and the bank would say, well, you don't have a salary or a pay slip or whatever.
Yeah.
But on my crypto exchange, I'm able to get a loan on my cryptos, buy a car, and pay a lesser interest rate than somebody's getting a loan from the bank. So
let me ask you now, if you are buying a car from an institution, how then would that institution receive the payment for the car? I don't think that makes sense.
I get you completely. So for example, let's say I've got 5 Bitcoin, right? Or
Okay.
let's say I've got 1 Bitcoin, right? 1 Bitcoin today is about 400,000 Rand, right?
Whoa, what?
Yeah, 1 Bitcoin goes for 400,000 Rand. It was higher, it keeps fluctuating. So what I would
One
do...
Bitcoin
Yes.
is
That's
plus minus 400,000
400,000 Rand, yeah.
Guys,
For one.
I'm doing something right in this life.
So what I would do is I would go on my crypto exchange
Yeah.
and I would get a loan on my Bitcoin, right? So I would get cash, fiat. So I'd basically get somebody who's going to give me the fiat currency. You can do this anyway online. Everybody's ready, right? And once I get that money, I would then go and buy the car. So I'd give the bank 400,000 Rand for the car, right? I'd drive out with a Mercedes-Benz or whatever, yeah. And I'd pay off my crypto exchange monthly. I would pay them off based on that interest rate.
And how would you pay them back? Because obviously with a financial institution, they would maybe
A debit order, right?
order or
Yeah.
monthly installment. On crypto, how does that then work?
Monthly installment as well, but I get to choose. So I can pay it off. If I get a lump sum of money, I can pay it off all of it at the same time. I can pay it off slowly. I get to choose what I want to do. So it's a whole new monetary system that
Yeah.
is not dependent on what the banking system has created already.
Is the value then still 400? Like, because I got a loan from you for 1 Bitcoin, and its value is 400,000 Rand. Then when I pay you back, do I pay it back to you as?
So you'd pay it back as 400,000 Rand, but that Bitcoin could increase in value or it could decrease in value. So that's the beauty or the negative of it, depending on how you see it.
Yeah.
So for example, You could take out a loan, 400,000 Rand on one Bitcoin from a Bitcoin institution, right? You use that 400,000 Rand to buy a car, and the price of Bitcoin could increase to 1 million Rand. So if the price of Bitcoin increases to 1 million Rand, you've got your car, you're able to pay back that money, and you're able to keep, and still do that. And I mean, the truth of the matter is banks never want us to know that money is created out of nowhere.
Yeah, it is.
And that's the worst part about it. And a lot of times, they only want your money to be capped at a certain system where your money never increases. And that's not true. I mean, we understand today that the monetary system was created out of nowhere. Literally, these banks just print out money, and as a result, because of laws and banks, they continue to make more money for themselves.
Sure.
So in the crypto system, people have been able to create a monetary system to help everybody who's within the crypto system the same way the banks have created it. And in that monetary system, if the price of that Bitcoin increases, your money increases as well.
Mpho, I could literally sit here and talk to you the whole day, but how can people get a hold of you on your social platforms if they have more questions that I maybe have not asked yet?
Cool. So I am on YouTube. You're able to find me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Mpho Dagada. I've also got a website, www.mpod.com. Number phones are there. Contact details are there. So they can use those details to get a hold of me.